This is just a fun eye drawing. A lot of students like to draw eyes, so I thought I'd make a quick tutorial about 10 minutes long here that you could follow along with if you like during a free time activity perhaps. And it starts with a general circle because we start with structure. And then inside the confines of that circle, you want to make generally an even oval. But eyes are not really oval. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut off corners at an angle, kind of like a parallelogram. And this is going to be the inside corner of the eye right here. And you just make some general connections. And you can notice I'm holding the pencil really lightly, making light lines as I'm penciling in the structure. That little circle right there would be the tear duct area. And all these extra sketchy lines are just going to stay in here. Now the iris of the eye, a lot of people draw it right in the middle, but you can see I'm letting its peak just behind the upper eyelid there, and it's really important that this is as symmetrical as possible. That's why we draw lightly and we restate the line a lot. And then because it's slightly higher, then I need to account for that when I pencil in the pupil. And you can notice that when I do circles like this, I'm establishing where's the bottom going to be, where's the side going to be, where's the other side going to be. But we're trying to make that pupil look really centered. Right there, I'm drawing in where the highlight is going to go. That's that little glare of light that shows up on the eye to show that it's got this wetness to it. I'm just penciling in the outer corners of the eyeball. Now there's this little flip of skin that sort of flips out right there, so I'm indicating that with that double line on the lower part of the eye. And then we're just going to start shading. It looks like I'm going to bounce around here, but the pupil is going to be the darkest dark. It's going to be a 5 value is what we call it in drawing class. It's going to be as dark as you can get it. This is where you want to neatly establish your edge there. And I'm just coloring in that dark, but you want to be really careful to avoid that highlight. The other thing is when you're shading, you don't want to think of it as a coloring book type of a situation. Any lines you draw, you want to make sure the lines are part of the shading, not next to the shading. So that's why I'm taking my time around those edges. When you put your pencil at the edge and just really darken it and then pull off of the edge, it makes the edge or the line that you drew part of the shading, and that contrast between the black pupil and the white highlight becomes more realistic. Now it's looking a little bit sloppy right now. I'm just getting the foundational layer down, and then come back over top and just dance your pencil in there and get it even. So now I'm going to shade the iris, and this is just basically an idea of an eye. As strange as it sounds, I'm not looking at an eye. These are just things to look for. You can make up an eye out of your head or build the structure of an eye like I'm doing here, or if you're drawing somebody's eye by looking at them, you'll at least know what to look for. So in this case, I'm giving a general grayish tone for the iris, but then there's that kind of border around the outer part of the iris. A lot of times it's just a little bit darker. That's what I'm doing here. But it also doesn't look like it's just an outline. It's got a darker edge that sort of fades into that general tone. So right about there, I'm dancing my pencil around, playing with the hand pressure of the pencil to sort of fade that line softly into the shading of the iris. Irises have that kind of crystal look inside them a lot when we look into someone's eyes. Usually a lot of what we find really interesting or attractive is just like the sparkliness in there. So as I get that faded, what I like to do is hold my pencil straight, and I'm not doing it yet, but here we go, hold the pencil straight up and down and sort of just go in and out gently around the outer part, and you can see it looks like these zigzag lines, but if you do it right, it just gives the illusion of just some crystal texture going on in there. So now I'm giving the whole eye just a tiny little bit of value. The whitest thing in this drawing is going to be that highlight. So even though we have the whites of our eyes, they're not really pure white. Or I should say they're not the brightest thing. They might be white, but they're not the brightest thing. So I need to knock down the tone a little bit. And then I'm giving a little bit of extra tone or shadow around the outer parts of the eyeball, because the eyeball is a sphere. So kind of going back around the edges can give more shadow, and it simulates that roundedness of the eyeball. Just kind of getting a general tone put in there, and it drives home that the eyeball is not just this white football shape, but it's got some roundness to it. And there I'm sort of shading the tear duct. Think of the tear duct as a tiny little ball. It's a little ball with some shadow and a highlight. And you don't have to spend lots of time on it, but it's really simple just to make it look three-dimensional like that. Establishing an edge, and then make that edge go into the shading. Make the edge seem like it's part of the shading, not next to the shading. That's a tip I like to give my students a lot with drawing and shading. So I want to show some skin right there. So the secret there is to skip over that little lip of light, and then I establish it with a line, and then I fade that downward and kind of blend it off. And you can see how it results in this illusion of a little bit of skin right there. And it's actually something that a lot of people miss. I'm kind of skipping over a little bit and then putting the shading around it, and that gives the illusion of this lip of light. That little lip of light makes that little bit of skin look like it's popping up. So that top of the eyelid, that's going to sink back into space a little bit. Here we go with some eyelashes. Now out to the edges, they really flare out. And then as we're more in the middle, they're coming more straight at us, so there's a little bit of foreshortening to the eyelashes. And you can see just the directional aspects. And I'm not thinking of this as one eyelash at a time. You can think of the eyelash as just shading with texture, and so close together toward the base of the skin that it's going to be the darker area right in there. But the way they flare out, the further out they go, that really shows us. Now right here, there's just like these little lashes kind of coming off that little lip of skin right there that we talked about earlier. And you're just simulating lashes. You don't need to think of it as accounting for every single piece of hair. Just simulating the look of it. Now this one's a big deal here. Our eyelashes cast a shadow over our eye. So I'm doing this gentle overview tone on that upper portion. And then I'm going to darken that a little bit so it doesn't get lost. But that's a super subtle thing that people don't pay attention to, is just the way light and shadow fall. So now I'm simulating that, for lack of a better term, it's like the bag under the eye right there. And it's just by putting a little tone there, you can make other things pop forward a little bit. So it's not too puffy out there. We can kind of knock it back with a little bit of tone. And now I'm just, my pencil is really soft right now, soft touch. There's a little flat part on my pencil lead that I'm really taking advantage of right now, and it will really float the pencil around and get a nice texture. And now that's the inside corner of the eye. That's kind of where the nose would show up, but we're not doing a nose in this drawing. But just sort of simulating that there's more to this face. It's not just a floating eye, but this eye is part of something more. You notice that whenever I reestablish an edge, I fade that edge into the shading. because I don't want it to look like I just drew any lines. There's no such thing as lines. There's just edges. It's an edge between one value and another value. And if it's a really gradual edge, you're going to get a faded, blended transition. If it's a hard edge, it's going to seem like what our brain would normally see as a line. There you have it, just a regular old eye. Good luck and have fun.